Okay, so what we've done now so far, we've created our banner, we've created our database, and the next thing we need to do is connect the page which has our banner on it to the database itself. And this is probably one of the ugliest parts of ASP programming, which is just the part where you specify how the web application connects to the data source. What we have to do is create a thing called a database name, and it has to be put inside the web config file. Okay, web config file is a very important file in ASP, which in which we can specify a set of some defaults and some variables which apply to the whole project. Okay, and so this is where we can specify one of the so-called connection strings which allow us, or allow the web application to connect to a database. So without further ado, let's right-click on the web config thing and just click open. And now inside Visual Studio, you'll see this is the initial state of the web config file. In it, you have a lot of all kinds of sections where you can specify defaults and things that are going to be included in your project and things like that. What we need to do, however, is to look particularly at this section, connection strings. A connection string is the way we can specify how the web application connects to a data source. Okay, so what I would do then, first of all, is delete this single line connection strings. Okay, and now let's put in our own one. So type in, right-click, connection strings. Okay. And what that will do is create the start tag and the end tag for connection strings. And then in the middle of that, we need to type in the instruction which adds a connection string. Okay, 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 and then here we go. So let's now, if we type it, it'll give us some help in doing it. In my case, what I've decided to do is just simply copy some of the important stuff into a little help file of my own, which can help me type this in. So now you see add. Now, first of all, we need to have a name. A name is going to be the thing through which we're going to identify our database, or the way we connect with our database. So let's go back into Visual Studio, and so then add name equals, okay, and this can be whatever you want ultimately, but let's just call it mobile standards DB. Okay, that's the name which we will use to reference it. Okay, now the next part is the nasty part, which is to say the connection string. The connection string is where we specify where the database is and also what will be the data provider. Okay. You can think of the data provider as being, if you like, the intermediate layer between the database itself and us. So it is the thing through which it's the middleman, it's the thing through which we make requests and get answers. In our case, we're going to be using the Microsoft ACE OLEDB 12.0 data provider. Other data providers might include things like MySQL or SQL Server. Okay, these are different data providers, or Oracle or whatever. Okay, so we're going to be, just because we're using Access, the provider that is typically associated with Access is Microsoft ACE OLEDB, and then after that we have to say what is the source, so what is our Access file. Okay, so let's just copy that connection string here. Okay, provider equals Microsoft. So I'm just going to just copy that in. So I've selected it in Notepad, and then I'm going to type in connection string. Okay, connection string, and I'm just going to paste that stuff I've just told you. Okay, so connection string equals provider. Oh dear, put it outside the quotes, but let's put that inside the quotes again. Provider equals. Here we go. So it says So connection string equals provider equals Microsoft ACLE 12.0. Data source equals then a pipe symbol. Okay, and then data directory. Now what that means is precisely the app data folder. Okay, pipe data directory pipe means the app data folder. Okay, so that was the reason why we put the database inside there, because it means that in this connection string, we can we don't have to type in a real path in the thing, which means it's relative to this web config file, which means nicely that we can then wrap up the whole of this web application and just put it on another server, and it will work on the other server because we haven't put in any explicit fixed paths. Okay, so that's where we have data directory, and then we put in the actual name of our database. And our database is called, I think it is Mobile Standards ACCDB. So we've got there, that's the name of our database inside the app data directory. Okay, it uses the typical data provider that Access Database uses, and the connection string, we call the connection string Mobile Standards DB. Okay, because our web page cannot actually reference the Access Database itself. It has to go through this kind of connection string. Okay, so that is now hopefully done. Okay, so we've got our connection string. Okay, now then, so that's having got that sorted out. The next thing we need to do is actually just I'm just going to write in some quite crass code. Okay, in order to show the contents of this database. So let me go back into mobilestandards.aspx file, and now it's quite essential. Now we go into we can go into the source itself, or what we can do now is, and this is, I mean, from now on, I'm always going to be using the code behind model rather than the inline code model. So what I'm going to do is create a placeholder in the page. A placeholder is just it's just an area of the page where we can write dynamic content. Okay, the placeholder, it's called placeholder 1. Just for now, I'm going to leave it called placeholder 1. It's not very elegant. Okay, and then I right-click on mobile standards.aspx, and I choose View Code. So I'm going to go into the code behind, and this is where I can now put in some code which is going to interrogate the database and come back with some values. Okay, so we've got here into page load. Now then, let's add some code. So I'm going to copy from my little crib sheet. Okay, here I've got a essentially there are a couple of stages you need to do in order to be able to read data from the database. First of all, you have to create an OLEDB connection object. Okay, and that is initialized from the connection string. Okay. So and the named connection string, in our case, if you remember, our named connection string is mobile standards DB. Okay. Then we open it. Then we're going to create a query, an SQL query. Okay, which is just going to read through all the data that we want according to various criteria of our own. Okay. Then that is going to be turned into a command object. The command object is we're going to say command object execute reader. That's going to return us then DB read, which is going to be, if you like, a readout from the database. And DB read is understood as being a sequence of records, okay, a sequence of database records following the criteria we've supplied it in our SQL query. And we can use a while loop to cycle through that set of data. Okay, so we're going to go through using a while loop to cycle through all that data. So let us, first of all, let's just copy and paste. Not good programming practice, but again, I mean, as I realise I'm dealing with some complicated things here, so I mean, this is quite rough and ready, the kind of the coding practices I'm actually doing now. We will refine it later in the chapter to actually do you much more, make it more programmatically correct. Okay, but for now, just to make sure you understand the concepts, I'm going to do it in a rather rough and ready fashion. Okay, so let's go back into standards. Okay, so on page load. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste all that stuff in here. Okay, so now then, dim OLED. Okay, so there's your construct. We're now going to replace that with what our connection string is, which I think is mobile standards DB. Okay, that will then be what we create is an OLEDB connection object. Okay, dim OLEDBcon as new OLEDB connection. Okay, and then we're referencing which connection the system wonders, and we sell it. This connection. Configuration manager, connection strings. Okay, and this configuration manager is the web config file. Connection strings is the section of it which is, and that's the mobile standards 1. Okay, so now it knows where to look for the data. That says OLEDBcon open. That then opens the data. That will then open that query, or we've opened that connection object. Okay, now we're going to type in some SQL here. Okay, command query is our variable. It's a string. Okay, I guess I shouldn't write it. I should write it. Dim command query as string equals. Okay, and then I put quote. So now then here we're going to do some very simple SQL. Okay, so hopefully you know a bit of SQL. As we get to more complex SQL, I will explain it for you. We want to basically choose all the records in the database and every single field in the database. And at the moment we've only got 2 records, and each record's only got 3 fields. So typically you wouldn't do this, but in our case we can. So we type in select star from papers. Okay, meaning select every single record, every field of every single record from the table papers. Okay, so that will choose every single record from every single field from every single record in the table called papers in our database called mobile standards, which is a reference to our OLEDBcon object, which has been gotten originally from our string mobile standards DB, which comes from the web config file connection strings mobile standards DB, and then that knows where the database is. Okay, so sorry for all this. This is horrible, I know, but this is the way it's done basically. So we've got that. Okay, dim command query a string. Okay, select star from papers. Now we've got dim dbcom here, so we need to create a new OLEDB command. Now that is not defined. Okay, so I've got a feeling what we need to do now is put an import statement in the top of the page, because otherwise it's not aware of this command here. So let's try this. So imports system system data maybe dot ol, there it is, system data dot OLEDB. Okay, now what should happen after I type that in is those kind of funny little squiggly blue lines should go away, and they have from OLEDB, but not from WildDB read, because we haven't fully implemented it. Okay, so here we go. So we've created that. So by adding this library, then we've got access to these other functions. So new OLEDB command query, which is this command query. This is a string we created. Select star from papers. That is going to be passed with this connection. Okay, and that creates this database command object. Having created the database command object, then we choose execute reader, which means that now we've given it the command to read. Now read the data, basically read the data. And then this db read, after having read the data, will contain all of the objects that we've put in there. Okay, so while db read, so I need to put in an end while. So end while, if I return that, I get an end while. So essentially what this means is while db read dot read, that means while there are records left to read, read them. So typically if I've written a query which has returned me 10 records, while db read reads the first, reads the second, reads the third, and reads until it can't read anymore. So while db read dot read means carry on reading as long as you have records to read. So I've got that now. While db_read.read, and the way you then, so if you think about all of these things that come through the read are essentially records from the database. And if we look again in the database, what you see there is we have this field author, title, week, okay? And you can get hold of those values by putting in dbread.item, open bracket, quote, and the name of the column, and you'll get the data in that column for that record, okay? So, while dbread, let's just put them, a very crass, we just put response.write, open bracket, dbread.item, open bracket, and we type in author, okay? I say this isn't going to look very good. I'm just typing in this, and I can do the same. Response, write, dbread. Oh damn! It's putting it there. dbread.item, open bracket, quote, week. Okay, and response.write, dbread.item, open bracket, quote, I can't remember what the other title I think it was. Yes. Okay, so there it is. So now then, what should happen then is the page will then read the database and print out all of the values inside it. Okay, so let us see if that works. There's all kinds of things that could have gone wrong, and I really haven't tried this out before. So let's press our start debugging. Okay, it's going to start playing. Hopefully, it's a bit slow because I'm recording the video at the same time. Mobile standards ASPX. Okay, hurry up, and it's a bit slow. It's still coming. Oh dear, we've got a bug. Okay. Could not use file already in use. Aha. So maybe I need to just close down my Access database. Yes, because yes, nothing had been. I hadn't saved it. So let's start again. Okay, I had to close down Access before I started this because there was some saves that need to be taking place in Access that need to be done before this could actually run. So now if I try this again, I play. Okay, hopefully this time there won't be any conflict, and as you see, it's worked, but not in the way we wanted it to. It has just basically put it before all of the text. Okay, so because essentially I've asked it to write into an area without specifying which area I want it to write in. Okay, so what I shall now do is, because remember I created that object placeholder1, and that is where I need to write this text. Okay, so but I think this has taken too long, so I'm going to leave it in this unhappy state at the end of this video, and the next video we're going to be making it look much nicer within our page.